The first week of June always carried a certain warmth, but that year it felt different, almost heavier. Like the air itself was trying to whisper something I wasn't ready to hear. Summer had just begun, and the city was already melting under the early heat. I had barely returned home from my first year at university when the silence settled in. At 20, you'd think returning home would feel comforting, familiar, but this time it felt like walking into a memory that didn't fit anymore. My father had left for an overseas business trip, one of those long ones that stretch into months. And my mother was staying with my grandmother to help her recover from a small surgery. Just like that, the house became mine, empty, echoing, too quiet for the season. But I wasn't completely alone. Not really. Across the street lived Celeste Rowan, our longtime neighbor. She had always been around, elegant without trying, graceful in the way some women naturally are. At 42, she carried herself with the calm of someone who had lived enough life to understand the value of silence. When I was younger, she'd ask me to help bring in groceries or move a few garden pots, and I'd always say yes. Back then, it felt like helping a family friend, but this summer, something was different. Maybe it was me, maybe it was her, maybe it was both. It happened one late afternoon. I was sitting on the porch, absent-mindedly scrolling through my phone, when I heard her voice, soft, familiar. "Aiden, could you help me with these boxes, please?" I looked up, and there she was, struggling with 2 heavy cartons near the trunk of her car. I stood immediately. "Of course, Mrs. Rowan, Celeste. Here, let me get them." She smiled, just a small curve of her lips, but enough to melt a little of that strange summer heaviness. "You're such a good kid," she murmured. "I don't know what I'd do without you around." I tried not to react to the word kid. At 20, it still stung a little, though not in a bad way, not coming from her. I carried the boxers inside, and that's when I noticed it. Her living room looked emptier, softer, stranger, like someone had changed the picture, but left the frame. She must have caught the shift in my expression because she spoke quietly, her voice brushing the air like a tired sigh. "Damien took most of his things when he left. He's staying with his sister for now. Her husband, gone." The thought landed softly, but the weight behind it was unmistakable. The exhaustion in her eyes, the way her smile didn't quite reach her heart at all, made sense suddenly. I didn't know what to say, so I said nothing, and somehow, that felt right. Over the next few days, I found myself helping her more often, fixing a squeaky window, changing a flickering bulb, mowing the lawn, small things, but each act made the space between us feel less like a street and more like a thread, thin at first, then stronger. Every time I finished something, she'd thank me with that same polite smile, but behind it, I could sense a quiet struggle, a loneliness that lived beneath her ribs, and I'm not sure when I started noticing the way she tucked a strand of hair behind her ear when she was anxious, or how her voice softened when she said my name, or how she always tried to stand a little straighter when someone walked by, as if she was afraid of looking fragile. One evening, as the sky turned orange and the cicadas hummed their summer song, I saw her sitting alone on her porch, a cup of tea in hand, shoulders slightly slumped. I stood there for a moment, debating, before finally walking over. "Mind if I sit?" She looked up, eyes tired but warm. "Not at all, Aiden. It's nice to have company." We sat in silence for a while, the kind of silence that isn't awkward, just honest. Eventually, she exhaled softly. "It's strange, when a house that was once full of laughter suddenly feels like a museum." There was something about the way she said it, not dramatic, not seeking pity, just truth. I didn't know how to respond, so I didn't. Sometimes, silence says more than words ever could. And that was one of those moments. That evening became a quiet shift between us. Not romance, not flirtation, but an understanding, fragile, unspoken, real. A week later, a storm hit out of nowhere. The rain poured so hard it blurred the world outside, and thunder rolled like the sky was breaking apart. Power went out on our street, plunging her house into darkness. I saw her silhouette through the window and didn't think twice. I grabbed a flashlight and crossed the street. "Celeste, are you okay?" She opened the door, relief washing over her features. "Oh, Aiden, thank you. The power's out and I can't find any candles." I helped her search until we found a few tucked away in a drawer. The warm glow from the candlelight made her living room look almost magical, like a softer version of itself. She offered me tea, and we sat by the window, listening to the rain hammer the world outside. Then it happened. A bolt of lightning lit the room for a split second, and in that flash, I noticed a framed photo of her and Damien turned face down on the table. She followed my gaze. "He used to love thunderstorms," she whispered, "said they made him feel alive." Her voice cracked, more from memory than emotion, and she looked away quickly. I felt something twist inside me, not pity, not sympathy, but something gentler, something protective. But before I could speak, she stood abruptly. I'm sorry, Aiden. I need a moment. She walked to her bedroom, leaving me alone in the flickering light. The rain outside sounded harsher now, almost impatient. After a few minutes, I decided to let her have her space. I grabbed my umbrella and reached for the door. Aiden, wait! I turned. She was standing there, eyes slightly red, voice soft. I didn't mean to make you uncomfortable. You didn't, I said quietly. I just didn't want to intrude. We exchanged a small, understanding smile, one of those rare ones that says everything without a single word. But summer nights have a way of carrying whispers. A few days later, neighbors started talking, commenting, assuming, judging. When my mother called that night, her voice was sharp enough to slice through the phone. Aiden, I heard you've been at Celeste's house almost every day. What's going on? Nothing, Mom. She just needs help around the house. I know, but people talk. You have to be careful. I understood her worry, but hearing it still stung. Celeste didn't deserve to be the subject of gossip. She didn't deserve more pain. The next morning, I went to see her again. She was in the garden, quiet, thoughtful. Celeste, I said gently, people are saying things about us. She didn't even flinch, just looked ahead, Tom in that wounded way of hers. They always do, Aiden. They don't understand. I hesitated. Should I stop coming over? She turned her head then. Her eyes were soft but tired, carrying the weight of something deeper. No, you're one of the few people who reminds me I'm still human. Those words, they settled inside me in a way I couldn't explain. Not romantic, not dangerous, just deeply, painfully honest. A few days later, everything shifted again. I was fixing her bookshelf when a small envelope slipped out from between two old books. On it was written, to Celeste. If you're reading this, it means I couldn't stay anymore. My breath caught. I didn't open it, of course, but the moment she saw it in my hands, her expression changed completely. Where did you find that? She whispered. It fell out. I didn't read it. She took it slowly. Her fingers trembled. She stared at it for a long moment, then whispered, You can stay if you want. I think I need to read this with someone here. She opened the letter. The room felt unbearably still. The storm from days before had nothing on the heaviness in that silence. The letter was short, too short for the kind of pain it carried. Damien confessed he couldn't handle his failures any more, financial ruin, guilt, shame. He was leaving to start over somewhere far away. Tears slid down her face. Quiet but unstoppable. When she finally looked up at me, she asked, Aiden, do you ever feel like everyone leaves when you need them the most? In that moment, something inside the story shifted between her grief and my helplessness. Between her loneliness and my need to protect her. Something meaningful. Something dangerous, something neither of us had words for. And as she looked at me with those tired, breaking eyes, I knew the summer was about to change in a way none of us expected.